And I'm Tina Kohlman, the Extension Dairy and Livestock Agent for Fond du Lac County, and my colleague Steph Plaster will be presenting on making a connection, reframing tough conversations for success. And this is a project both Stephanie and I have worked on with our colleagues here in Sheboygan, Ozaukee, Washington, and Fond du Lac County that started over 2 years ago, when farmers are in distress due to commodity prices and having to make tough conversations or make tough decisions. And as service providers, how can we help facilitate that conversation to help them make decisions? And this project has started originally as a communications and active listening project that started with distressed farmers, has migrated into farm succession, and today kind of migrated with COVID-19 and the pandemic. So many of the strategies we talked over the past 2 years is really helping you as service providers to strengthen your communication skills, to have those tough conversations or crucial conversations with your producers. And today we're going to be focusing on reframing conversations for success. So why are we here? Well, when it comes to communication and why we're here, it's human nature to avoid conflict. Nobody likes conflict in discussions, in their professional or their personal lives. We tend to avoid stressful situations. And it's also human nature to avoid the unknown or making a decision when we don't know what the outcome will be or what that change, that decision may cause will be our outcome. So many times we avoid making decisions because of the unknown. We also find it easier to avoid these types of conversations of conflict and stress and critical conversations. Regardless if it's farm succession, if it's financial management, or it's making production decisions on the farm, we avoid these conversations and they tend to fester and become charged on the farm, making it even more difficult to have the conversation right before it implodes. We have an inherent discomfort in crucial conversations. And when it comes to being service providers, we're very good at our jobs, tending to focus on the technical part of our jobs. We know the numbers, we know the criteria, we know rations, but really, we don't stop and take the time to consider the emotional component to these conversations that we have on farm. Now, just a reminder, communication. I know it's a little fluffy for us, but communication is that successful conveying or sharing of ideas or feelings, regardless if it's personal type of conversation or if it's a professional conversation we're having with our clientele or other employees on the farm. It's about sharing those ideas and feelings so that we can successfully have a conversation that is productive. So today, for about the next 15 minutes, there's 4 things we want you to focus on that you can take back to the barn. Conversation strategies about reframing to shift the perspectives of our dairy individuals you work with, how to establish those rapport with the clientele you work with your family members, or even your employees on the farm, how to respond instead of react. We tend to react in a lot of our conversations, but how can we respond more strategically and with compassion? And then how do we use those active listening skills to frame our response in a way that we'll have a productive outcome with the other part of the conversation? So first, we're going to focus on reframing. And this is a quote that really kind of resonated with me. Reframing. It's really a key to transforming anything that lies in our ability to reframe it. And when we think about reframing, think about putting a frame around a picture and how we can really make that picture look better or worse. And what we're going to talk about is reframing a conversation in a way that we can move it forward to be more productive and more collaborative with the other party. So reframing basically is to frame or express, they could be words, a concept, or a plan, differently and looking at it from a different perspective. So if we're going to look at it a different perspective, we have to remember that the role of reframing is not changing the mind of the individual that we're having a conversation or discussion with, or a crucial conversation. What we are doing with reframing is changing the context so that they can reframe or shift the perspective of the situation from maybe a negative perspective to a more positive outcome type perspective. And to help the individual move forward in the conversation, to move forward in the decision making that maybe they've been stuck on in the past, but now we want to move them forward towards the future.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Once again, I'm Steph Plaster. I'm the ag educator in Ozaukee and Washington counties. And right now we're going to run through some scenarios. And really, as we're going through these, they're just very basic general examples that maybe we'll come across on the farm. And we're going to look at them from taking more of a half-empty approach to a half-full approach, looking for those opportunities, because really when we talk about reframing, we're looking at more of an outcome-based approach, like Tina mentioned, to move the conversation forward, to help our clients or our family make better decisions for the farm. So we're focusing on that productive, collaborative approach. There we go. So a half-empty approach might be, we all go through tough times, but you still have to pay your bills. If we're thinking about this and we're trying to be a little bit more productive and collaborative, we might say, you know, you still have to pay your bills, maybe not very friendly approach, but is there a payment amount you'd be more comfortable with? You know, through 2020, I've been involved in a couple of conversations where farmers have approached me wondering, like, I don't think I can pay my bills. My creditors are saying, like, you got to, like, there's no other option. But if we're trying to be more collaborative, trying to get more productive and work towards a solution, we might ask, what can you afford to pay? So another example we might see on the farm, you can't use this forage, it's full of mycotoxins. Over the last year, we've had plenty of options for this. So it's full of mycotoxins, you can't use it, get rid of it. A more productive approach, are there other forages available we could use to blend this with? Let's find a solution together. So how do you plan on paying for a nursing home? You know, maybe we're doing some farm succession planning. We've got a family member who's going through a health crisis. You know, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to plan on paying for a nursing home? Maybe instead we approach it, what opportunities for long-term care have you explored? Is there something we can work through and talk through together here? So as we focus on this, reframing the situation, what we're really doing is, it's all internal. This is within us. It's not within our clients. It's within us. We're trying to find that internal mode of operation we can use and apply to conversations to really de-escalate situations that get charged. A lot of times, as Tina and I have given some of these communication presentations, one of the questions that comes back to us is like, how do we redirect a conversation that's getting charged? Or how can we handle when someone's really coming at us and verbally unloading on us? And this reframing and how we approach is a really big piece of that can de-escalate a situation. It can turn a more difficult problem into an opportunity and give that person that you're working with time to process and look and shift that perspective. So really what we're doing is we're focusing on the relationship. So if you have that relationship built, if you've established that rapport, folks will see the situation a little bit differently. So how we establish this rapport is we focus on the issue at hand, avoiding personal attacks, even if they're coming at us, avoiding taking that personal attack against them and bringing the situation back to the issue and not back to the person. So we're listening without reacting or interrupting. That's showing respect to the conversation because we want that spirit of cooperation. If we have that spirit of cooperation, then it's not going to be us against them or one person against another. And we're really recognizing their feelings and showing the person we're having the conversation with that we do recognize what they're feeling. We recognize what's motivating them and whether they might be, you know, upset or scared or frustrated with something. and we're responding with clarity and empathy. Empathy seems to be the word of 2020, that word that just shows that we are taking into consideration what they're experiencing, understanding that we may not know what that experience is, but we understand it's difficult for them. And then we're learning to tolerate that discomfort of frustration. It is not easy, but there are ways that we can control it. And that leads us into our next point, that the only reaction you have any control over is your own. So just reminding yourself to take that time to respond and not to react, keeping calm within ourselves, recognizing that, yes, this makes me angry right now, but I can control it. That's okay. I'm feeling very angry, but I'm going to respond in a more positive manner, or I'm going to respond in a more controlled manner, even if I'm very upset by this conversation. So remaining calm, keeping that clear, open mind, being very assertive. You should still have the ability to state your point on your plan and make accomplish what you're trying to within the conversation, but not being aggressive. And we can do that using positive body language and vocal tone. Not the rolling of the eyes, that sigh is a real big one. Someone that while you're talking to them, they're sitting there, their arms are crossed. That is an easy way to shut down that cooperation within the conversation. So keeping that positive body language and vocal tone, and using our active listening skills, using open-ended questions, providing gentle affirmations within the conversation, really encouraging folks, reflecting, using reflective statements, encouraging folks to deepen the conversation, and then also summarizing the key points of the conversation to keep us on track. So next, we just have a couple more scenarios. Again, focusing on, these are just tips and tricks for us as we have some of the more difficult conversations going into the end of the year, that we want to fix our eyes forward on what we can do. So focusing on the future rather than on the past and on things that we cannot change. So if someone were to say to you, I don't want to even think about working on my farm taxes right now, they stress me out, we could respond by saying, what small part of your taxes can you work on now that might start to ease the burden? Just like a gentle, have them come up with the solution or come up with some ideas, and that opens the door for you to have that back and forth conversation. Or what about, I can't do anything about the grain price I will receive, or I have received. So what risk management tools have you considered? And then you can have the conversation, well, what's worked well? What hasn't worked well? What did you really like about XYZ? And you can expand from there. The strain between my husband and my parents is so annoying. Well, what do you think causes you to feel annoyed? Like, what could be done to improve that relationship? Some things that just open the door that you can expand and figure out kind of that reason behind what's going on. And this always seems to happen to me. Well, what can we do to prevent this from happening again? Just something that kind of keeps that conversation more focused on opportunities in the future, less focused on that negative emotional association with it. So we're just trying to look forward, that collaborative outcome-based approach. So we just had 15 minutes today to talk to you about this, but we really hope that we've given you some conversation strategies on reframing to shift perspectives, establishing that rapport, that relationship, responding instead of reacting, keeping that internal control, and knowing that you can't change what they're going to do, but you can change how you respond to it, and then using our active listening skills to frame that response. Oh, Tina, you are muted.
Thank you, Steph. And to kind of reiterate what Steph had said on the previous slide, one of the key things we wanted to take home as well is that with some of the other conversation listening and conversation strategies of reflecting, where we summarize as well, not only the content of the conversation, but the the feelings and the emotions, or open-ended questions that are who, what, where, when, and how questions to help deepen the conversation, or summarizing conversation. Those are more structured type of conversation strategies you can use. Reframing doesn't really have a structure to it. It's basically how our mode of operation is, changing something from the negative to the positive, moving something from the past to the forward. So it's about how you want to frame a conversation. And part of the communication is about reaffirming the relationship. It's about ending on a positive note so that we can focus on the future, to get momentum, to move them forward. Many times our producers, our clientele, our colleagues we worked with, we haven't had in the past several years ability to move forward. So using that conversation to help make the focus on the future opportunities that they have. And the most important thing we want to leave you with your communication strategies, it's about letting them know that you're there to support them, not just through their farm business, but emotionally and mentally, supporting them through these difficult times, whether it's the commodity prices, whether it's farm succession, the coming up holidays, or just with the stress that we've had with COVID-19 and the many mandates we have, or family members, colleagues, or employees that may be affected by the pandemic. And then also following up, then we do have responding to farm stress. Again, this is any type of mental stress that our producers or our clientele or our colleagues may have. We have many resources at extension.wisc.edu farm stress that is available for you to share with your individual colleagues, employees, and that to help you maybe navigate some resources with those that you work with. So again, making that connection is a really important part of the conversations that we have every day with our farmers, our clientele, our coworkers, or our employees. It's about reframing these tough conversations for success, not only to help move them forward, but to deepen the conversation so that as service providers, we can help those farmers make their goals of their farm business operation, but as well to help understand what their wants and needs are. And when they know we can support them, they feel better in making some of the important decisions they need through our support and making that connection with those they work with. Thanks. And if you want more information, again, we have several different communication strategies Stephanie and I have worked with our colleagues. And if you would like more information at any time, you can give us a call or reach out to us, or if you have any questions.